All right, folks. Hello, everybody. We've got a very special episode, kind of a new style, something that I'm trying out. I guess this all comes from the shorts and the TikToks that I've been uploading. I finally finished. I guess it's a little complicated to describe. Here's what I would say. I've been doing a lot of game reviews recently, and most recently I just finished, or actually I would say a few weeks ago before I went on vacation, I just finished reviewing most of my favorite arcade shooters. So things like Gunfire Reborn and Mist Hunter and games like that. So we have about 11 games to review. So let's talk about what we're doing. We are going to be ranking all of my favorite arena shooters, or not arena shooters, but arcade shooters. And this is obviously, a lot of these are roguelikes, but I think at least one of them doesn't necessarily qualify as a roguelike. And we have 3 honorable mentions, games that are a little bit different, but I still love them. So I think without further ado, we should just get into it. So yeah, these are arcade shooters. Most of them are roguelikes, so you'll find a couple similarities between them. And so part of this video part of this video is kind of going through the differences between these games. And a lot of them have similar mechanics, but it's kind of a factor of, okay, there's these slight differences that make one better than the other. Okay, so also going to be a new editing style. I have the green screen going for these face cam clips, and then I'm going to be cutting over to the desktop, I guess is what I should say. I'm going to be cutting over to the desktop, and we will be doing the ranking. And then, when it is just my face, I'll be doing some footage in the background from each of these games, just so you can get a good idea of what it looks like. So we'll spend a minute, maybe a minute and a half, at most 2 minutes, talking about each game, and I'll be able to show some footage from those games. And so I guess part of this is, my hope is to upload these as a shorter version, a short or a TikTok, and then post those on TikTok, and then, be like, hey, if you saw this on TikTok, go watch the YouTube video and you can see the full thing. So I think without further ado, let's just get right into it. Swap over to tab 1, go green screen, and there we go. I think we're good to go. Okay, so this list is a little small. I'm going to zoom it in a little bit. Can I go 150? I can go 150. Okay, so that's a little bit better to see. So we have 11 games here. I'm just going to go through all of them. They're already in a pretty good order right off the bat, so there won't be a lot of organization. But yeah, we've got Gunfire Reborn, Roboquest, Get to the Orange Door, Risk of Rain 2, Bullets Per Minute, Mothergunship, Mist Hunter, Immortal Redneck, Ziggurat 2, Strafe, Into the Pit, and then our honorable mentions are going to be Warframe, Fallout 4, and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Okay, so I've described all of them. Let's just get right into it. The first game that I'm going to use, the lowest, I wouldn't say, well, one of them has to be the worst. So number 11 is going to be Mist Hunter. So I guess we'll tab back over. So yeah, let's talk about Mist Hunter a little bit. Mist Hunter is a little bit unique. Mist Hunter is the only reason that I'm calling these arcade shooters instead of roguelike shooters, because it's not really technically a roguelike. It's more of an arena shooter. So basically you have these many different arenas that you can go through, and basically how the game works is you have 2 weapons that are on battery that recharge, and then you have 2 weapons that you need to pick up ammo for. So you have a pink weapon, you have a green weapon, you have a blue, and you have a red. And what happens is you run into enemies that have similar colors. So you'll run into pink enemies that can be kind of annoying, and you'll run into blue enemies that are pretty strong. So basically the whole game is just managing your ammo, running around the arena, picking up health, picking up shields. But then the roguelike aspects come from the idea that basically, I don't know how it works. I think it's based on kills, but at some point you'll get these upgrades, and these upgrades are pretty classic roguelike. You have bonus crit chance, bonus crit damage, you have, increased shield regen, pretty basic stuff, but it's all very roguelike-esque. And so that's why, these games aren't necessarily roguelikes, but this game is also kind of a roguelike, so I guess it's just really easy to talk about. It's really fun to play. I guess the reason that I put it at number 11 is just because it isn't a true roguelike. It doesn't have that progression system, which is more of a roguelite feature, but we're just getting into the weeds. I think what I really love about this game is just that it's really fun to just pick up, and it's hard to forget how to play this game, I guess is what I would say. Like, it's such a basic concept, and it's so simple to understand that, you know, you can basically just pick it up and not play it for a few weeks and then come back to it, and you're still going to be just fine. You're still going to play pretty well. So it's never something that I'm super worried about remembering how to play. There's definitely some other games, you know, Synthetic 2 is a great example where that game is just full of mechanics and things for you to remember and things for you to be good at, and so it's never ending. But I think Miss Hunter is very special because it is a very true to life arcade game where there's not really progression. You just kind of pick up, play, get a high score, and then put it down for a while. So that's all I got for you. All right, let's tab over. All right. Number 10 on the list. So this is going to be C tier, I think. I think so. Here's my thought process. These 4 games down at the bottom I kind of want to put them in these 4 spots, but it just depends on where I want to put them. I think I might put Strafe at number 10. And then we can talk a little bit about Strafe. Okay, so Strafe is at number 10. So let's tab over again. So, let's talk about Strafe. Strafe is a Devolver Digital production, or I guess it was published by Devolver, but it's a pretty old game, at least from what I can tell. It might be like 2017, 2018, but I think one of my favorite things about Strafe is just that it really does feel like a Doom game, but it's a roguelike. Like it has all the stylings and it has all the aesthetics of Doom, but in the end it still has roguelike mechanics and it still has the classic roguelike feel. And I think really what's so cool about Strafe is just kind of it's a really good balance of like really classic shooter where the map is very simple and the enemies are kind of just obviously they're very thematic. That's classic to a roguelike, is you have very specific zones. You know, the first zone is kind of like a derelict ship that's full of like these zombies or monsters or whatever you want to call them. And then you can kind of move into zone 2, which is more of a desert, and I've only ever made it there once, but I don't know. I think it's just it's a classic brutal game is what I would say. There's not a lot of healing. There's zero upgrade mechanics. It's basically just survive for the most part, and the only upgrades is you being better at the game. And I'm trying to remember. I think there's like ammo and armor and health, but that's about it. Like for the most part, the only things that you collect are going to be like health crates or like spending your money to get more ammo or to get more armor. So it is very like bare bones, and it does feel like classic Doom where you're just kind of, you're always trying to survive. You're always like on the fringes of dying, and I think it's very classic. I think one of my favorite features is like the weapons you pick up are limited use, like they're not permanent. So you have a limited ammo capacity for like a railgun or something really strong, or like a grenade launcher. But then once you run out of shots, then it basically just becomes a glorified baseball bat, and you can throw it, but it doesn't really matter. And you know, there's like barrels, explosive barrels that you can pick up. So I think it's very like, it really does feel like you're being teleported back to the 90s, like before I was even born. And then you're playing this game, but it's modern and it has very consistent projectile mechanics, and the physics in the game is really sexy. And so it's this perfect blend of old school and new school, and it's just absolutely classic. So that's number 10. That's Strafe. That was about a 2.5 minute segment, so I hope I have enough footage for that. All right, let's tab over. All right, here we go. Number 9. Oh gosh, this one's gonna be difficult. I'm debating between Into the Pit and Immortal Redneck. I feel like I should put Into the Pit right here, but I kind of like Into the Pit. I think we'll put Into the Pit at number 9. Yeah. These two games are very similar. That's why I kind of want to, and these two games are also very similar. That's kind of why I want to keep them together. Anyway, so number 9 we have Into the Pit. Let's tab over once again. All right. So, Into the Pit is another one of those games that, it's a roguelike, but it really does feel like an old school game. And that's really just because of the style and the aesthetic that it takes on. It's very much like pixel art, but 3D. It's like the models are really, really cool. I love the look of this game. It's a very Lovecraftian heavy game. So there's like demons and poison and lots of stuff to love. And the hub area is kind of like a classic Shadow over Innsmouth style town where the townspeople are all weird, and I think it's just very solid in its design, but it's also very unique in its design. Like, essentially you load into the game and you have you have north, south, east, west, and each cardinal direction has 2 options for you to take, and so it could be like a healing zone, or it could be like a money zone. And so there's like different types of money for you to spend. And I guess the whole game revolves around these motes, which are kind of like collectibles, but they serve different purposes. So some motes will revive you when you die and also heal you, but other motes are just used for currency. But then other motes still allow you to like re-roll your upgrades. And so you complete a zone, you complete these really small arenas that have like a few enemies and some motes, and then you break a keystone and then you leave. And that's about it. And so it's like, I think what I really love, and I think what Into the Pit does really well, is it's a great example of solid mechanics, about how like if you design something and you're very careful about the style that you design and the mechanics that you use, I think it really lets the game shine in a very unique way. I also, I almost didn't mention this, but it has a really unique projectile system. So instead of having guns, you just have your 2 hands. And so what happens is, your right hand could shoot a shotgun blast, and your left hand could shoot like a long range full auto blast. But it has like a battery, and so the more that you shoot your shotgun, the less battery you have, and so it'll run out very quickly. And so it kind of manages your fire rate in that way. And so you're swapping back and forth. You got the different abilities, and then you can put like poison on your left hand and bleed on your right hand, and then now suddenly you have a double combo, and you'll get bonuses from a double combo, very much like Hades. So it really is a classic. It does everything you want from a roguelike. That's kind of what I would say. Is it knows what it's trying to be, and it does it really well. So that's kind of what I would say. That's about a 2.5 minute, maybe 3 minute segment. So, all right, let's tab over once again. Okay, so number 8, I'm definitely gonna put Immortal Redneck, and then I'm just gonna do number 7 as well. Ziggurat 2 at number 7. Yep, I think so. So these two games are very similar, so I'm kind of just going to talk about them one after the other, and then I'll just put a cut somewhere in the middle, and then we can kind of tab over. And so we'll just talk about these two games for the most part. I'll try and separate them so I can actually have better footage. All right, let's cut over. Boom, there we go. All right, so we'll start with Immortal Redneck at number 8. I think Immortal Redneck is a really cool game. I think it's well designed, and obviously they had a good budget. I think that's something to really pay attention to. Is like, it feels almost AAA. Obviously it's a very indie game, but it's very clean. All the mechanics I just love. I think it's good to just describe the mechanics. So one of my favorite things, it's kind of why it's debatable between number 7 and number 8, but Immortal Redneck has a pretty decent upgrade system, so you go into the temple, you collect gold, and then whatever gold you collect you can use to upgrade. But the catch is, it's kind of like Rogue Legacy, where when you go into the temple again, it resets your gold. So you start from 0 every time. So if you want to actually get those high level upgrades, you need to be better at the game. You need to actually get to further zones. You need to kill more enemies. And so it becomes like a very simple like gameplay loop. Like right at the beginning of the game, You're getting upgrades quickly, but you're also dying really fast. So you're not really collecting a lot of gold. And then as you get further, as you unlock more of these loadouts and things like that, you get a lot stronger. But I think what I really love is this game has loadouts, but in a really unique way. So instead of having traditional like ability loadouts where you kind of decide, it's more like you have I guess patron gods is a good way to describe it. So, you start off with the redneck god, but then you'll unlock like the bull god and the electricity god, and they all have unique weapons and they all have unique abilities. And so it's fun to be like, okay, I'm playing a weapon, I'm playing a loadout that's getting buffed. And that's another cool thing is like, if you play the same class over and over again, you're going to get negatives associated with that class. So it kind of incentivizes you to try all these different characters and these different classes. And it makes it really fun to be like, almost more like an arcade game where you just pick it up and you're like, oh, Bull God is getting buffed. I guess we're using Bull God this time. And then, you do a run, you do a couple runs, you get a few upgrades, and then you're pretty much done. I think, well, here's the thing. And this is a problem with a lot of these roguelikes is I'm not necessarily great at all these roguelikes. So, if I talk about Immortal Redneck, one of my gripes is that I haven't really seen a boss yet. I've mostly just been fighting minions. But I have a sneaking suspicion that that's just because I'm bad and that there's only a boss when you actually complete the temple. And so, I think overall that just kind of just sucks. Part of it is just how I play, but also part of it is just, I love bosses. One of my favorite things about roguelikes is just, you fight a bunch of useless trash tier mobs and then you fight a boss. And so it's like, you have certain abilities that are on kill, or you have certain abilities that are, or you have like upgrades that, or you kind of have stuff that drops from enemies. And so when you fight a boss, obviously there's less enemies, which means, less healing drops, less experience drops, things like that, less money. So it's kind of a different gameplay. And so, when you play Immortal Redneck, for the most part, you're just going to be fighting minions. And so, it's not exactly ideal. It's not exactly perfect. And so that's the main thing. All right. Now, let's talk about Ziggurat 2, which is a very good kind of counter to Immortal Redneck. Ziggurat 2 is much more centered around your weapons and your loadout as something that is ever changing. And I guess, well, Ziggurat 2 is really cool because it's a big change from Ziggurat 1. Ziggurat 2 has characters for you to play as, which each character has abilities, they have health stats and all that stuff. And so it's kind of similar in some ways where you can get experience bonuses from using other characters and using other weapons. And so there's that little gameplay loop that, when you do these missions, so like in Immortal Redneck, you have temples that are kind of set in stone. But in Ziggurat 2, you have these ever-changing missions that are kind of like, oh, here's a hard tier mission, but you're going to get like 3 new items. So it's really valuable, but it's going to be super difficult. And so it is like managing the risk. And I think that's a really fun thing to include in a game is like, I think the risk management aspect of roguelikes is just super fun. And so, so you collect these characters, you collect these amulets, and then you get all your weapons. So you start with a wand, obviously. It has infinite energy, but then you have alchemy, you have spells, and you have staves. And each of these are kind of like a unique design mechanic. So spells are going to be kind of all over the place, but you know that a staff is going to be like a specific projectile, or like if you have a spell, it could be like a shotgun, or it could be basically anything. I'm assuming there's like lightning strike spells, but with a staff, it's basically just projectile shooting. So you could have a full auto staff. You could have like a staff that shoots a giant orb, and the orb like bounces around, or you could talk about alchemy, which is very unique. A lot of alchemy weapons are like explosive weapons, or I don't know. I think it's just really cool that you have these 3 unique weapon classes, each with their own ammo pool, but then also each with their own unique design. And so it's fun to get new alchemy weapons and get new staves, and makes the game very satisfying to play. I think that's the important thing, is like progression is fun. There is a progression system. It is pretty basic, but you know, you can upgrade, you can get more experience, you can get more health. So it's all like very basic essential stuff that you need in a roguelike. So I think that's what I would say. Obviously it has bosses, which is a really cool feature. I love the bosses. The bosses are a great example of enemy design, where a lot of the bosses are like uber versions of normal enemies, so you kind of know how to fight them already. And so that's something that I really love about Ziggurat 2, is like you understand the enemies really quickly, and they're very obvious. So you know, you have like these giant hulking suits of armor that shoot these AoE projectiles that are really, really annoying, but also like super cool and fun to mess around with. And you have slimes, and you have carrot enemies that explode, and so it's just like tons of variety and tons of enemies. And it has like minion rooms, which are the low tier levels where you're just fighting enemies, but then you get to a boss. And you know, I think the feature that I don't really like is that the in-game progression, which is like when you're in a run, it's kind of lackluster. You know, you have these perks which will give you certain bonuses, but it doesn't really go beyond that. Like when we get into these later games, a lot of them are going to have like modifiers on the guns, and they're going to have unique abilities on the guns that are randomized with each run. But I think Ziggurat 2 is very cut down. It's very simple about how they design it. So I think that's about all I got for you. So let's tab over. Let's do number 6. Okay, let's go. All right, here we go. Number 6, I think, is going to be Bullets Per Minute. Bullets Per Minute is a pretty great game. So let's talk about Bullets Per Minute. All right, here we go. So Bullets Per Minute. Bullets Per Minute is very unique. There's a game called Metal Hellsinger that's coming out recently, or coming out soon. And it's very similar design, where it's a shooter, but you have to shoot on beat. You have to do everything on beat. You have dashes, you have jumps, you have shots, you have reloads. They all have to be on beat. But if you are on beat, then you're going to get more score. Oh my gosh, excuse me, folks. Yeah, it's pretty basic. That's what I'm getting at, is, you know, it's basically just an arcade game, but it's in a roguelike style. You have upgrades. I think what I really love is just the really basic upgrade system. So you'll find little shrines that you can spend money, and then you'll get like a damage upgrade, or you'll get like a speed or a range, or all this stuff. And so it's very basic stuff, but in the end, like, it is just cool guns, cool bosses, lots of enemies, and a score system for you to like manage yourself. And so it is like pretty cut and dry. And so I think, you know, I got some comments on my TikTok, and people were like, yeah, it's, you know, I played it for 2 hours and I kind of was done with it. But I think what's fun about it is just, it's so satisfying to play. It's just, anytime you get you know, rhythm involved, anytime you get music involved, I really think it adds a lot of uniqueness to the game, and it adds a lot of variety. And so that's something that I really love, is just, it's really fun to just play, even if you've already beat it. I think it's just so satisfying and fun, and that's kind of the gist of it. And you know, there's really no cross game progression system. It's not like a roguelite. It's very much a traditional roguelike, where, you know, when you end the game, that's it. You start back at square one. You don't have upgrades. You have none of that. So you know, you're just praying for a cool gun, and you're praying for some good armor. You know, there's like, you have your gun, which is a unique item to pick up, and then you have like chest or head armor. You have like wrist armor. You have chest armor, and I think you have boots. And I think those are like, those can all be unique items that give you special bonuses. So it's kind of like luck of the draw. There's a little bit of RNG involved. So I think it's very much like just fun to get a cool loadout and just run around and jump on beat and shoot on beat. And it's just satisfying. I mean, but you can tell that it doesn't have a lot of stuff to it. It's just, it's fun, and that's it. That's kind of all I got to say. All right, let's tab over. Okay, so number 5. This one's kind of a hard one. I think you can already tell the top 3. They're basically already in the right spots. I think I've got to put Mothergunship as number 5. And then we got to put Risk of Rain as number 4, and then we'll get into the top 3. So these guys are top 3. These guys are in the right order. Actually, why don't we just put these all where they should be? Okay, so this is Get to the Orange Door. This is Roboquest. And then Gunfire Reborn is my number 1 spot. All right, so number 5, Mothergunship. Number 4, Risk of Rain 2. Number 3, Get to the Orange Door. Number 2, Roboquest, and number 1, Gunfire Reborn. Okay, so let's add some tiers to this. I think I'm going to put a tier right here. So this is A tier. Move down here. Yeah, I think 7 through 4 is going to be B tier. Yeah, I think that kind of makes sense. And then, yeah, and then there's a C tier. Okay, so that's my list. So 11 through 8, these are all C tier. So that's Mist Hunter, Strafe, Into the Pit, and Immortal Redneck. These are all C tier. And then B tier, kind of cool. I think definitely the top of B tier is a lot cooler than the bottom. Ziggurat 2, bullets per minute, a little bit more stripped down, kind of lacking in some features, but all design essentials. Like, for these games to be higher on the list, they would have to be completely different games. Like, their whole design is kind of why they're lower on the list, but it's also why I love them, is that they have a unique design, and obviously it's nowhere near as cool as the top 3 as the A tier, but doesn't mean it's bad. I still think you should play them. And then C tier are definitely games that feel a little bit more lackluster, but they have something that's very cool about them. You know, Mist Hunter is an arena shooter, which is pretty unique, but then Strafe and Into the Pit, they have a really cool aesthetic. So, you know, it's not always about a game being super perfect. I think there's a lot more to a game than meets the eye. I think this whole series, I'm going to be doing more of these videos, and definitely I think that the Infinite Arcade games is going to be a huge, really long video, but I guess what I'm getting at is it's important to judge these games holistically as like a whole package and say, like, for every bad thing, there's lots of good things. For every bad thing that I don't like, there's usually 2 or 3 things that I love about it and that are pretty unique about that game. But, you know, there's not a lot that can compete with Gunfire Reborn, Roboquest, and Get to the Orange Door. Like, the top 3 are really, like, they're there for a reason. And, you know, that's all I gotta say. Okay. So we were at number 5. So let's just do 5 through 1. Let's just do all of them in a straight shot on video, and then we'll talk about the what are these guys called? The honorable mention. So these guys will be separate, but yeah, we'll just do just face cam for the rest of it. So, you know, this is the last time you're going to see it. So take a screenshot, do whatever you need. Let's tab over though. Okay, here we go. So number 5, Mothergunship. What do I like about this game? I think what I really love is the unique weapon system. So in this game, you basically have build a gun. So guns have sockets, like little points where they all connect. So you have like a connector, you can have like a 5 wide just a tube basically, or like a row of sockets, and then you can put 5 guns onto those sockets. It's going to use more energy obviously, but you get the idea. I hope that explains it well enough. So you just add more and more and more stuff to your gun, and then it shoots more, and it has special modifiers, and I think it's so basic and it's so easy to understand that there's no going wrong with it. It's so simple. That's kind of what I gotta say. So that's a number 1. I also really think that it's just a cool enemy design, and it's a cool way to do a game. So, you know, it's very similar to Ziggurat 2, where you kind of have missions, and you can have hard missions, you can have easy missions, and the missions can give you different rewards. So you can get coins, you can get experience, you can get some new weapons. So it's all pretty basic is what I gotta say. But I think it's just fun. It was made by a pretty small team, that's what I know. And what I remember is it was a follow-up. Like, Mothergunship is a sequel to a game called Tower of Guns. And, like, just one of my favorite features is just when you kill enemies, sometimes you'll get these cards or these little upgrades, and they could upgrade your health, they could upgrade your energy, or they could just give you more jumps. And that's just one of my favorite features is you'll be 6-7 rooms deep into a mission, and you'll have 12 jumps. You'll have 15 jumps, and the part of the gameplay is just if you stop moving for 1 second, then you're basically dead. So part of it is just constantly jumping in the air. And then the other part is like you load into these rooms, and they're just full of enemies. They have dozens of guns just shooting these fat bullets. I guess is what I would say. They have a lot of missiles and bullets, but there's lots of cool enemies. There's like laser drones, and there's like healing drones, and there's like little towers that create these bubbles that you can't shoot through. And I don't know. I think it's a really awesome way to design your game. And, very similar to Ziggurat 2, there's like buffed, like boss style enemies, in specific rooms that give you like tons of upgrades. And I think it's just a really cool, it's a unique way to build a game. And I think it's wholly unique to that one game. And the other cool thing is like, I'm pretty sure this game is also in VR. So, when I eventually do my review for VR games, which is probably coming up after my Infinite Arcade games, I mean, VR games is going to be dope. So many cool VR games, and Mothergunship is one of them. So, yeah, I think the devs really do a great job with Mothergunship. That's what I got to say. Okay. Now, Risk of Rain 2 is a classic. Risk of Rain 2 is a chef's kiss. It's a Hapu Games, and obviously it's the sequel to the original Risk of Rain, which was by far one of the oldest roguelikes you can play. And don't quote me on that. I don't want people in the comments telling me that my history lessons about roguelikes are wrong. I've already had enough of that. But yeah, Risk of Rain 2, the sequel to Risk of Rain, it very much follows after the first. And it's definitely not one of my favorite games, but I have to put it at number 4 purely because of posterity's sake, because it is so iconic, and it is such an important step in the whole roguelike genre. And like the original Risk of Rain was so unique in its design, and I guess I should just describe that for you guys. So basically, it's a race against time. The longer you play, the harder it gets, but every time you kill enemies, you get money, and then you can spend that money to get upgrades. Basically, you find these crates. So your goal is to just run around the map as fast as humanly possible, get as many crates as you can, and power up. Just get as strong as humanly possible. And then, you do the teleporter event, you fight the boss, and that's about it. I mean, that's about as basic as it gets, right? Like you're just racing against time, and you got really cool enemies, and going to different zones is always exciting and scary. And I think what's really awesome is like Risk of Rain was so good, but then when you include the 3D element where you can run around, you can jump, you can look wherever you want, it is true 3D. It has verticality. I just love the maps. They're just so awesome. And so you really can't go wrong. And this is something that I forgot to mention in a lot of these games, but Risk of Rain 2 has really great multiplayer. Actually, from what I can tell, Mothergunship is the first game on this list that has multiplayer. So I should mention that Mothergunship has 2-player multiplayer. Risk of Rain 2 has 4-player multiplayer. But yeah, I think as a multiplayer game, it's awesome. I mean, it's very rare that you actually get to play roguelikes with other people. So every time I get the chance, I always take advantage of it. Super awesome. Yeah, but like I said, it is mostly on here for posterity's sake. It's definitely more fun to play with friends, but I've played my fair share of it. I'm not bad at it, but definitely not great at it. And I do have more favorite games, but that's why we have the top 3. So let's get into that. The top 3. Number 3, truly an incredible experience. Something that definitely stands alone in the roguelike shooter genre. That is Get to the Orange Door. Obviously, it's important to mention, shout out Andrew, the dev. Absolute badass. He puts out great videos. It's a really cool way to see his progression about how he's built this game, and it's just awesome. So, yeah, definitely go follow him. I probably will put a link to his YouTube channel in the description. But yeah, it's just too good. That's all I gotta say. So Get to the Orange Door is more of like a parkour shooter. You have insanely high movement speed. You can double jump, you can dash, you can stop time, or at least slow time. And then you just have really satisfying weapons, and you even have auto aim. So it's really designed for you to just be running around at insanely high speeds, and you can get really cool weapons, and you can get some nice equipment. But very similar to other games, there's not a lot of in-game progression or in-run progression, and there's no out-of-game progression. Like, basically you can unlock new loadouts, but that's about it. But I think really this game is a perfect example where if you make good mechanics and if you design them really well, that's all you need. Like, it's just insanely fun to play, and just running around with really high auto aim just makes it insanely, you feel like a badass. And like I think that's an important thing about roguelikes, is just feeling like a god. And you're moving so fast that it becomes like second nature. Like, you don't even process what's going on. You're literally just like zooming all over the map, and it's just, oh my god, I love it. It's just one of my favorite games. So definitely give it a try. It's kind of hard to describe. That's what I found. It really, you got to play it. Obviously Steam has the 2-hour refund, but I would assume you would love it in the first 2 hours. All right. Cause it's a really cool experience, and it's very unique. So, if you like roguelike shooters, if you like shooters, I think that game is just totally up your alley. That's all I got to say. And yeah, it is a little hard to describe, and I haven't even beat the first boss, but it doesn't really matter to me. It's just fun. And, it's very similar to Risk of Rain 2, where it has the difficulty scales with the time that you've played. So, you want to stick around and kill all the enemies, but in the end, that's a little bit of a risky maneuver. That's all I got to say. So, yeah, that's about all I got. Now, we've made it to the top 2. These 2 games are so mechanically perfect, and they get updated so often, and every time they get updated, I'm just in love with the updates. And obviously I sound like a stan, but if you're going to come onto these videos to hate, wow, that's cringe. That's all I got to say. Get out of here. Shoo. Anyway, these 2 games, Roboquest and Gunfire Reborn. Let's start with Roboquest. So Roboquest has a feature that Gunfire Reborn also has, but it's one of my most essential features. Weapons have modifiers. So, you have your classic weapons. You have shotguns. You have energy shotguns that don't have ammo but have a recharge. You have bows. You have crossbows. You have explosive weapons. You have flamethrowers. It's just a limitless amount of weapons. Any projectile you can think of, any style of gun you could think of, it exists in this game. But really where this game shines is that guns have modifiers, which means damage, range, accuracy, or sometimes you'll get crazy things like 10% of the time your bullets create a shotgun blast, and so it's like, whoa, that's insane. Or you'll get a modifier that gives you an alt fire, like it gives you kind of like an explosive alt fire. So really, like, having modifiers on your already existing gear adds so much variety to an already randomized game that it really does. It makes every run so special. And getting that one OP gun and getting that insane build going is just perfect. It just makes the game so satisfying. And honestly, it's hard to decide whether Roboquest or Gunfire Reborn should be on top, because Roboquest has a feature that I really love, and it's very similar to Get to the Orange Door, where it's much more vertical and it's much more movement centric. Like in Roboquest, you are much more mobile. You can kind of run faster than every enemy in the game, and you can kind of zip around the arena really, really quick. And obviously you can jump on people's heads, which is just hilarious and awesome, and you just gotta love it. So yeah, Roboquest, obviously it has cross-game progression system, so you level up your base camp and you can get better guns, you can get more loadouts, you can get more heroes to play as, or more robots, or however you want to describe it. But yeah, like, You really can't go wrong with this game. I think what they do so well that it's just what's not to love? That's all I gotta say. What's not to love? And not to mention, it also has 2-player co-op, and it has cross-play between PC and Xbox. And I think it was available on Game Pass. So another game that you can play with your friends and just have a blast, just running around, shooting the shit. Literally shooting the shit. Okay. Now, number 1 game, Gunfire Reborn. Oh my god, what an incredible game. They just had a big DLC. I think what I love about Gunfire Reborn is how tactical it is and how incredibly complex it is. And also one of my favorite features is just the difficulty setting. So, right off the bat, when you play Roboquest, if you beat the game, you can just scale up enemy health by 10%. But in Gunfire Reborn, when you beat the game, you unlock Elite difficulty, and then Nightmare, and finally Reincarnation. And each of those difficulties adds tons of new mechanics. So it's not just about enemies are now harder, they have more health and more damage. But it is really like enemies have modifiers, and each room now has more traps for you to be wary of. And what else? There's probably more, but it's hard for me to come up. There's definitely more elite enemies. And so I think what this game does, it does insanely well, where it has similarities between all these other games. You have classic enemy types that are so cool, and then you have boss versions of those enemy types, and they're scary and they're intimidating. And one of my favorite features is the different health systems. You have shields and armor and health, and you have to manage your different damage types. So obviously lightning is strong against shields, and corrosive is strong against armor, and fire is strong against health. But then all of those things also have weaknesses. So, like one of my favorite things is like with the DLC, they added 2 new characters, and one of those characters is like a firefox. And so her fire abilities are going to be really strong against health, but they're going to suffer against those other 2 damage types. And so it's about managing all these stats, and you have these passive upgrades that called occult scrolls, and the occult scrolls can completely change your play style. And once again, the weapons have modifiers. So you could get a sniper that's insanely strong as it is, but it could have garbage modifiers, and so it makes the weapon essentially useless, especially in those reincarnation difficulties where the game is just insanely complicated and you need like perfect weapons to even succeed. And the bosses are awesome, and they added a 4th zone, which is just insanely hard with a really, really cool boss. So it's just what's not to love. And it even has 4-player co-op, but only on PC, which does kind of suck. But yeah, it's just, in terms of mechanics, it is one of the, if not the most mechanically complex roguelike shooter out there. I would say like Synthetic 2 is also similar, but Synthetic 2 is more of a top-down, so we can talk about that in another review. But yeah, I guess we're running short on time, so yeah, Gunfire Reborn, definitely my number 1 pick. Now that I think about it, just how complex it is and how carefully designed it is, it really does stand above all these other arcade shooters. It really is just an incredible experience, and I would recommend it to everyone. And I think part of these games is like, you got to play it a couple times before you really start to understand the mechanics. And I feel like once you've learned the mechanics, it becomes insanely fun for you to like manage the mechanics that are within the game. And getting achievements will get you new gear, and so as you play, the longer you play, the more fun it gets because you get better gear, and it just absolute win. And then I guess real quick we'll talk about the 3 honorable mentions. Warframe is better than Destiny 2. Let's say that right now. Warframe is better than Destiny 2. And why do I say that? Because Warframe doesn't fundamentally change its mechanics every season. Like, every time that I see a new Destiny season, I think, well, shit. If I get in now, not only do I have to learn the old mechanics, but then I have to learn the new mechanics as well. And so it's like a never-ending cycle. And here's another thing. Destiny 2 Lightfall plus the annual pass is $100. And let me explain this to you. If you have Warframe, if you download Warframe, it is free, and you just keep that $100 from the Destiny 2 Lightfall expansion, you could get 4,000 platinum over the course of a long period of time. Every time you get a 50% platinum discount, you could get 1,000 platinum for $25. All right, give or take tax. So the amount of shit that you can buy with $4,000 instead of having to buy the mandatory Lightfall DLC. Like, if you want to play all the content in Destiny 2, you have to spend at least $100 to get Lightfall plus the annual pass. If you had 4,000 plat, which is $100 worth of plat, you could get 3 of the best gear from every class. You could get 3 of the best heroes, you could get 3 of the best primaries, secondaries, and melee weapons. And then you could be set for the entire game. All right? And you don't even have to worry about mechanics changing that much. Like, if a mechanic changes, it's because there was a huge rework, and you can look into the rework and see how it changed. Like, spear guns got a rework and ammo got a rework. And so you can look into that and read up on the patch notes and learn about it way simpler. And I just think the devs in Warframe are so good about making sure that people understand how the game works and that people understand how to play. And so you're not having to worry about being like, oh shit, Titan is now garbage in Lightfall or whatever. Obviously they wouldn't design their game that way, but in Warframe, the mechanics are the mechanics. Abilities are abilities. They don't change, all right? Your Warframe abilities aren't going to get a huge change unless it's like Hydroid, where he kind of needs a rework, all right? So when you learn something in Warframe, that's it. You learned it. You know how to play it, all right? You don't have to worry about huge, massive overhauls that completely change everything about the game. And obviously, that is a cool part of Destiny 2 as well, but I think in terms of these massive MMOs, I think it's very scary when, especially in Destiny 2, when you're just starting out and you're always worried about, oh, am I going to catch up before Lightfall, or is there going to be another huge update that changes everything? And am I going to be screwed when I'm only halfway through progression? So that's rule number 1. And I think that's the main reason why I always recommend Warframe over Destiny 2. The thing that is hard about Warframe is that it is insanely complicated, and Warframe came out in 2013. I started playing in 2013 or 2014. With every update in Warframe, they just add more, all right? So for you to just be logging into Warframe, you're having to learn almost 7 years of gameplay, all right? So, or more than 7 years, like almost 10 years worth of gameplay, all right? The 10-year anniversary for Warframe is coming up in the next 2 years, and that is just mind-boggling. So there's just so much shit to learn. There's so many quests to play, but I think what's so satisfying is, once you've done a couple quests and you've gotten like a decent chunk through the game, and you start to understand the mechanics, and you have some decent gear, like Mastery rank 7 is a huge point of contention, because then you unlock the Zorus, which is just an absurdly good glaive, and if you're using glaives, you're basically set for the entire game. Once you finish the Sacrifice, you get the Sacrificial mods, you get the Umbral mods. Once you unlock Arbitrations, you get an Adaptation, which is just insanely good. So there's like break points in Warframe where when you start out, it does suck. The game is not very fun at first because you have 0 mods, you have 0 weapons. So I think what's really awesome is finding a clan, finding some friends who play that game, and just getting them to give you all the best gear, or at least all the best mods. Like, everybody has 50 serrations, everybody has 50 split chambers, and barrel diffusions, and hornet strikes, and pressure points, and you get the idea. All right. Farming for stuff sucks, but reaching out to the community, having some kind of plat to spend, can save you weeks of farming can save you a month of having to collect all the shit, and you can get all of it in 5 seconds. And so that's what's so cool is you can speed it up by an insane degree. All right. So that's what I got for Warframe. One of my favorite games. I got to say that. One of my favorite games ever, period. I mean, I just crossed 6,000 hours in Warframe, and that's pretty much just playing it, and that's it. I don't do hour-long runs. It's mostly just short missions, or I'm in the orbiter for a decent amount of time. But anyway, okay. Next up, honorable mentions, Fallout 4. Obviously, vanilla Fallout 4 is dog shit. It is garbage. Do not even bother with it. But if you mod it properly, if you do mod engine, or if you do mod organizer, which I love mod organizer, and you download some Nexus mods, all right, you need some weather mods, you need some lighting mods, some gameplay mods, like some better physics, some better AI. You could get CBBE. I won't even talk about that, but you can make your characters look better. It's just kind of a world that you can sink into. I think what sucks is that Fallout 4 doesn't exactly have as much content as like Fallout New Vegas, at least from what I can tell. But I think it's really just a great shooter, and it's fun to just play it as like a randomized shooter. All right, there are these things called Radiant quests, which are basically just randomized quests that send you to a dungeon, and then you collect the boss chest. And the Radiant quests are just so fun because you just get to clear out a zone. That's it. You get to use your really awesome guns. You have to download the time stop mod, or the bullet time mod, or whatever you want to call it. That game is that mod is insanely awesome. Excuse me. You should definitely download the forest mod, which covers the whole Fallout in a forest, because it makes open world encounters really scary and really awesome. And so that's something that I recommend. But really, it is like part of what's so awesome about Bethesda games is the modding. That's really it, all right? Because you get to make your own game. It's like build your own game. You get to pick the exact mechanics you want. Your characters look exactly how you want. You can make it look as dreary or as exciting as you feel like. You could make it look like a cyberpunk world, or you could be more like me, where I've turned off all the weather that doesn't have fog, so it's just always foggy in Fallout 4, and it just looks amazing because you have that insanely crisp God rays, and you can make some minor adjustments to the God rays, which just make it look insanely awesome. So it's a beautiful game, and it's super fun to play. That's about it. I could just walk from place to place in Fallout 4 for the rest of my life and just do a Radiant quest. Like that's literally all I do when I play Fallout 4. I have a companion that gives me Radiant quests. I just ask her for a quest. I warp somewhere near the quest, and then I just walk the rest of the way. And you just get to walk through this beautiful forest with some drizzle coming down and some basic fog effects coming in. So it's super simple, and it's just insanely fun to play. And you don't really need quests. All right, you don't really need writing for the game to be fun. Obviously, I think a lot of people love Bethesda games for the writing, but I think whatever. You get through the quests, it's kind of fun. But really, I just love the look and I love the style of it. All right. And finally, our final honorable mention at 53 minutes. We'll just go for an hour and then we'll close it out. Star Wars Battlefront 2. Competitive sucks. I'm going to say that right off the bat, because everybody who plays competitive is ultra sweaty. It's just a bunch of people playing against each other. And here's what I would say. When you play competitive, 90% of the time, you're going to end up as the clones. And you're going to be fighting the droids. And the droids are going to obliterate you, because they're just going to be snipers that know every sightline in the entire game. And then you're going to get sent to your own spaceship, and then the droids are just going to steamroll you from there. So it's just not fun. People are way too good. You're going to get obliterated by General Grievous and Darth Maul over and over, and you're going to get killed by a General Grievous, and he's going to be like level 500 General Grievous, like just the sweatiest motherfucker you've ever seen. So I recommend co-op always. It's more of a competition between your teammates to see who can get the most points. I think it's really awesome to try and level up every hero. I would say that a lot of heroes are really, really good, but A lot of them are pretty playable. That's what I gotta say. I'm definitely more of a gun hero than a lightsaber hero, because the lightsaber heroes are kind of just bullet sponges. But yeah, it's super fun. It's a classic EA game. You have classes with different weapons, and a lot of the weapons are really strong, and you get to choose your own star cards with unique upgrades and abilities. And I think it's just classic as a easy shooter that's not complicated and is really simple to play. It doesn't take a lot of effort. I think it's just easy to pick up. It's something that you can just play as much as you want, and you don't really have to worry about much. And obviously, it's a Star Wars game. It's one of my favorite Star Wars games, and it's just so satisfying to play. Really, there's not a lot to hate about it. That's all I gotta say. The co-op missions are pretty short. You're either attacking or defending, so when you first start out, you're probably gonna lose a defense pretty often, but that's just the name of the game. But hopefully you get somebody like me in your squad that's just a sweaty motherfucker who's level 300 in every of the basic classes. And I finally I've leveled up every hero, so all of my heroes are max rank. They all have the best cards, so at this point it's just an arcade game. It's just fun to pick up and play with some squad mates, and definitely play with friends. It's super fun to play with friends. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend this to lots of people. So that's about all, folks. So that was 56 minutes. That was pretty freaking long. Only 11 games. It just makes me think that if I do infinite arcade games, that's a huge list. So I got to do that really, really quick. And every game has to be like 1 or 2 minutes. So yeah, that's about all I got for you. Who knows? It's probably going to take me a while to edit this. Just an hour-long video. It usually takes me a while. So yeah, that's about all I got. Well, thank you guys for watching. If you did make it to the end, thank you very much. It's pretty basic. We'll have some gameplay in the background, so I hope you like that. If you feel like supporting me, definitely hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell. I'm streaming Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. And I think if I upload this in time, Thursday, September 15th, I'm having one of my friends on the Thursday stream, so that's going to be exciting. He's going to be streaming in over Discord, and we're going to be testing some stuff out, so really exciting. Definitely go watch my shorts, go watch my TikToks. I'm suspecting that I might be uploading a shorter version of this tier list for the people on TikTok and for the people on YouTube. So yeah, that's about all I got for you. I really gotta drop a deuce. So take care, folks. Bye bye.